Good news for Biafrans, as God is about to liberate his own people. Nnamdi Kanu, a well-known Biafran leader, has written an open letter highlighting judicial and executive misconduct in his case since his rendition in 2021. The Biafran leader has chosen to defend himself in court, citing frustration with perceived judicial bias and unequal treatment in the legal system. Judges have allegedly refused to take his case, and a previous judge recused herself after facing allegations of external influence. Claims have surfaced that a judge was pressured to jail him in exchange for leniency towards her family members accused of corruption. His arrest and extradition were allegedly conducted in violation of international and Nigerian law, drawing comparisons to past government-led abductions. Several court rulings have reportedly ordered his release, but the Nigerian government has continued to file new charges to keep him detained. His letter and public stance suggest he is seeking a political rather than a purely legal resolution to his situation. His continued detention is believed to benefit political elites in his region who allegedly fear his influence over the people. The letter has gone viral, increasing international scrutiny on Nigeria's human rights record and governance. His case is contrasted with those of other political detainees and ex-militants who have been pardoned or reintegrated, raising concerns about selective justice. I was sitting one quiet afternoon when I came across a story that immediately captured my attention and stirred something deep within me. The story was about the Biafran people and a remarkable development that many believed was a sign of hope, a hope that God, in his infinite wisdom, was preparing to liberate his own people from a long history of injustice and suffering. I felt compelled to share every detail of this account, a tale filled with passion, pain, and perseverance, as if I was sitting with you over a warm cup of tea and recounting every twist and turn of this unfolding drama. At the center of this narrative is a man whose name resonates with many who have long struggled for self-determination and justice in Nigeria. Nnamdi Kanu, a leader well known not only for his advocacy for the Biafran cause, but also for his unwavering stance against what he calls judicial and executive misconduct, has taken a bold step that few would dare to take. In a move that defied conventional expectations, he chose to represent himself in court. He wrote an open letter that laid bare the many injustices he felt had been perpetrated against him since his rendition in the year 2021. I remember feeling a mix of admiration and concern as I read about his decision to put his words out there, not just as a defense against the legal charges, but as a rallying cry for all those who have been wronged by a system that seems to favor the powerful over the people. In that open letter, Nnamdi Kanu began by greeting all men and women of goodwill, not only in Nigeria, but also across the world. He explained that recent events had forced him to take an unusual step, one that many might have deemed reckless under the circumstances. But as I continued to read, I realized that his decision was anything but reckless. It was an act of profound courage, a declaration of his belief that the truth must be told, no matter the cost. He detailed what he described as a series of actions by the government and the judiciary that, in his view, amounted to nothing short of fraud. He talked about how, since his extraordinary rendition, he had been subjected to a legal process that was anything but fair. His words painted a picture of a system that was rigged against him, a system in which judges, instead of upholding the law, seemed to have preordained his guilt before his case could even be heard. I found myself imagining the courtroom drama as it unfolded, with Nnamdi Kanu standing before the judge, his voice echoing through the chamber as he defended himself. According to his account, the judges had repeatedly refused to take his case seriously, dismissing his pleas and concerns as if they were mere noise in a rigged system. One judge in particular had recused herself from the case, after allegations arose that she might have been influenced by external forces. There were even claims circulating that one judge had been pressured to ensure that Nnamdi Kanu remained behind bars in exchange for leniency toward her own family members who were facing corruption charges. The injustice, as described in his letter, was not limited to the courtroom. It extended to the very manner in which he was arrested and extradited. It was alleged that these actions had been carried out in direct violation of both international law and Nigerian law, drawing disturbing parallels to past incidents of government-led abductions that had left scars on the nation's collective memory. What struck me most was the persistence with which the government continued to pursue his detention. Despite several court rulings that had ordered his release, new charges were brought against him time and again, as if to ensure that he remained a prisoner within the confines of an unjust system. It was as if every legal loophole and every procedural technicality was being exploited to keep him from speaking out and, more importantly, from mobilizing the people who believed in the cause of self-determination for the Biafran people. In his letter, Nnamdi Kanu made it clear that his struggle was not simply a personal battle for freedom. It was a fight for the political rights and dignity of his people. He was not content with a purely legal solution, for he believed that the scales of justice had been so heavily tipped by political interests that only a political resolution could ever truly set things right. As I read further, the narrative took on the tone of a passionate plea, a call for the public to open their eyes to the injustice unfolding before them. I was reminded of how, in many ways, the struggles of the Biafran people had been intertwined with the broader fight for human rights across the globe. Nnamdi Kanu's open letter quickly went viral, and it wasn't long before it caught the attention of international observers who were increasingly critical of Nigeria's record on human rights and governance. The story, as it was being told, was one of selective justice, a stark contrast to the fate of other political detainees and former militants who had, under different circumstances, been pardoned or reintegrated into society. The inconsistency in treatment raised uncomfortable questions about who was really behind the wheels of power and whose interests were being served by the continued detention of this outspoken leader. I recall vividly the moment when the news report mentioned that a community leader had come forward with details that echoed the sentiments of the open letter. This leader, who had been in the news for several consecutive days, spoke at length about the series of events leading up to and following Nnamdi Kanu's rendition. In a conversation that was both raw and unfiltered, he recounted how Nnamdi Kanu had taken it upon himself to defend his case in open court, a decision that had sent shockwaves through the legal community and among the general public alike. I felt as though I were hearing the story firsthand, as the community leader explained that when the judge in the courtroom was still presiding over the matter, Nnamdi Kanu had stood up and demanded that he be allowed to speak his truth, to defend his honor in his own words. It was a moment of defiance, a moment when the oppressed seemed to rise and reclaim their narrative, even if just for a few brief minutes. In his own impassioned manner, Nnamdi Kanu had compared the treatment he was receiving to that of others who had been similarly marginalized by the state. He mentioned the case of a young man whose trial had been marred by procedural irregularities, and he noted that while some detainees had been released after facing charges, his own continued detention seemed to serve a far more sinister purpose. The implication was clear. There were those in power who believed that by keeping him locked up, they could control the narrative and, by extension, control the people. The idea that political elites might benefit from his silence was a bitter pill to swallow, and it cast a long shadow over the proceedings in the courtroom and beyond. As the story unfolded, I could sense that the events of that day were not isolated incidents, but rather part of a much larger tapestry of struggle, resistance, and hope. Nnamdi Kanu's actions had struck a chord with many, both within Nigeria and internationally. His decision to write an open letter, to speak out against what he perceived as a deeply flawed system, resonated with those who had long felt voiceless in the face of injustice. I found myself reflecting on the power of words and the way in which a single act of defiance could galvanize an entire movement. Here was a man who, despite the odds stacked against him, had chosen to take his fate into his own hands. In doing so, he had not only challenged the legal system, but had also given voice to the hopes and dreams of a people yearning for freedom. The conversation surrounding his letter was layered and complex. There were discussions about how, in many ways, the system itself had become a tool of persecution rather than justice. One speaker in the dialogue pointed out that the actions against Nnamdi Kanu were not just about prosecuting a suspect, but were, in fact, a form of persecution, a deliberate campaign designed to silence dissent and maintain control over a restless populace. I listened intently as the speaker elaborated on how the legal process had been manipulated to ensure that Nnamdi Kanu remained behind bars, even in the face of clear evidence that should have secured his release. It was a narrative that was both heartbreaking and infuriating, a narrative that revealed how the scales of justice could be so easily tipped by those with power. There was also an element of irony in the way the case was being handled. The very laws that were supposed to protect the rights of every citizen were being used as instruments of oppression. The open letter made it clear that what was happening to Nnamdi Kanu was not an isolated event, but a systemic issue, a reflection of a broader malaise that had taken root within the corridors of power. As I thought about this, I couldn't help but be reminded of other historical instances where the rule of law had been subverted by political expediency. The story of Nnamdi Kanu was unfolding in real time, and it was as if history were repeating itself, albeit in a modern context. I also recall the vivid descriptions of the courtroom drama that played out during the proceedings. It was said that when the judge had finally taken her seat, there was a palpable tension in the air, a tension that spoke of deep-seated frustration and a burning desire for justice. Nnamdi Kanu's voice, when it rose in the courtroom, was not one of meek submission, but of bold assertion. He spoke about how he had been wronged by a system that refused to see him as a human being with rights and dignity. His words were not just legal arguments, they were a plea for recognition, a plea for the world to see the truth behind the facade of legal procedures and bureaucratic formalities. At one point, the discussion turned to the role of certain judges in the process. It was mentioned that one judge had recused herself after facing allegations of external influence, a decision that, while legally sound on the surface, only added fuel to the fire of public suspicion. There were whispers and rumors that this recusal was not an act of impartial justice, but rather a calculated move designed to shield the system from further scrutiny. I found myself sympathizing with the frustration of those who believed that the very individuals entrusted with upholding justice were, in fact, complicit in perpetuating a system that was anything but fair. The narrative continued to unfold with references to other similar cases, a comparison drawn between Nnamdi Kanu's situation and that of other political detainees who had been treated differently by the state. It was a stark reminder that justice, as it was being dispensed, was not blind, but was instead selective and biased. The idea that some detainees could be pardoned or reintegrated into society while others languished behind bars was a bitter pill to swallow. I remember feeling a deep sense of injustice as I considered the implications of this selective approach. If the legal system could be manipulated to such an extent in one case, what did that say about its ability to serve the people as a whole? The open letter had an almost prophetic quality to it, as if Nnamdi Kanu were speaking not just for himself, but for an entire people who had been denied their rightful voice. His words carried the weight of generations of struggle, a struggle for self-determination that had spanned decades, if not centuries. I was struck by the passion with which he described his own plight, a passion that was tempered by a keen awareness of the broader political context. It was clear that his fight was not merely a personal battle, but was emblematic of a larger struggle against oppression and marginalization. In his own way, he was asking the world to pay attention, to acknowledge the injustices that had been inflicted upon his people, and to join in the call for a more just and equitable society. One of the most powerful moments in the akin to taking one's fate into one's own hands, a move that was as much about reclaiming narrative, came when the speaker in the discussion mentioned that Nnamdi Kanu's actions were dignity, as it was about challenging an unjust legal system.
A community leader. Mr. Fokansi, there's been, Nnamdi Kanu has been in the news 2 weeks back to back, and I would like PCR to put up that letter. Let's just take a look at it, beginning from the first page of it. So let's see. So his open letter to the public. It says, "Greetings to all men and women of goodwill in Nigeria and elsewhere in the world. I have been compelled by events of the past few days to take the unusual step of writing this open letter for the singular purpose of calling the attention of the public to the serial executive and judicial fraud being perpetrated against me since my extraordinary rendition in 2021. So he now went ahead to pen a whole lot of lengthy stuff, but of course, there's no way I'll read it. It's just lengthy. So the long and short of it, Nnamdi Kanu has bared his heart and his mind on an open letter. So for someone on trial, what is this?
Well, for someone on trial, this is like one taking one's fate in one's own hands. You know, Nnamdi Kanu had or have legal representation all the while. The greater number of those doing them pro bono. You can see that of Ejimako, you can see that of the other young man from what's his name. Now these people have been representing him all the while in court. But if you watch the scenario of what happened last week in open court, you know why the judge was still sitting. He opened up and said, "I want to take his fate in his own hands. Let him defend himself. Let him talk how he feels." You see, when you have two different laws for two different sets of people in one country in brackets, you find out that this is the kind of thing you expect to be happening. Because you can recall that in this platform of Abba TV, we have discussed the Attorney General's enter of Nole for the Metiala suspect that was being tried for terrorism and reasonable felony. We have also seen the discharge of the case of Igbo in the southwest. Now ask yourself, what is so special about Nnamdi Kanu's story? Nnamdi Kanu, when he said the husband and the son of Justice Nyako is being tried for corruption somewhere, and that they gave him a condition that she should jail him so that the son and the husband could be set free. So we began to dig whether it is true or not, and found that it is true. Now, that's by the way. The judge also recused herself following Nnamdi Kanu's protest last year. I think that was around between November and September, thereabouts. The judge said, "Okay, since you don't want me to try you, I will not try you." That is what you call recusing yourself. She recused herself. Now, the file was returned to the Chief Judge of the Federal High Court for reassignment to any other judge, or even to himself. Not stops him assigning judges. After all, they are all judges. The difference that this one is the eldest. Otherwise, they are primacy. It's just a mere primacy inter pares among judges. He cannot even overrule a fellow judge because all of them have the same power. But administratively, somebody should be at administration administrative level. The chief judge of the Federal High Court is at the same level. So when the case now was returned to him, the rumor mill says that many judges rejected the file. That's the rumor mill. It wasn't in the judge's own hands. He didn't write it down, because if we have written that, we would have known a judge that will be assigned the case and say he will reject it. Now, even if one judges reject it, why not take it on yourself? Since Nyako has recused herself, now you sent it back to Nyako. That is when Nandi began to smell a rat. Because what is so special about Nyako? Is she not just a judge like every other judge? Why must she be the one that the file will be going, you recuse yourself, you bring the file back to the same judge? No. What makes Nyako so special to try Nnamdi Kanu's matter? Now, Nnamdi has no other option other than to write an open letter. So let Nigerians see how he is faring with his trial. Let Nigerians see it. Now, as a lawyer, at least any lawyer that is about 20 years post-course, don't marry a young lawyer because I'm not a young barrister. I'm not a young barrister. So I think my take home from this very trial is that it is no more prosecution of a suspect, let me put that way. The no more prosecution of a suspect. It is now persecution of a suspect. Because why do I say it is persecution? Persecution in the sense that, number one, you have an illegal act which you committed to bring Nnamdi Kanu to Nigeria. That is rendition. It is illegal, both under international law and our own law. But then it happened under Buhari. And Buhari, like all we know, is a man of rendition. He tried to rendition Umar Diko when he was a military head of state. But the able eye of British police, the American police, I think it was American police also, they caught him and opened the crate. Lo and behold, it was Umar Diko that was created in a crate, about to be taken back to Nigeria on a diplomatic bag. Because according to Buhari, he was indicted in a military tribunal that was set to try politicians who held sway in Nigeria between 1979 and 1998, when they had their coup. Now, they tried something with Nnamdi Kanu. They plane flew into Kenya, got Nnamdi arrested. Whatever way they used to hypnotize and put him into a plane and bring him to Nigeria, only the knows. Even the Kenyan government says they are not even aware that the plane came to Nigeria, but that is also a falsity, because every plane that takes off from any airport in the world has a destination. Yes, there is none. Just like a ship. Any ship that takes off from any port in the world, there is a monitoring mechanism for ships, like they are for planes. So telling us that they don't know that the plane came to Kenya and took Nnamdi Kanu is neither here nor there. But let us leave Kenya out of it. Let us look at the people that orchestrated the mass rendition to Nigeria. We are having the rendition to Nigeria. The question is, what stops you assuming a rendition illegally? And we can recall also that there are about 1 or 2 court orders or court judgments telling them to release Nnamdi Kanu. And in all these days, the parliament has never faulted. Either way, they will say they will draft a new charge. If court charges you of a given charge for which you are arraigned in court, and you are still kept by the security agencies 1 minute after that order, it's an illegal detention. And if you sue for it, for false imprisonment, you could recover in damages. But this was nobody cares. They bring the man, they try him, they discharge him, they say they hold him, they bring another child tomorrow. So these things are things why the man now has to take the laws into express and satisfy himself.
But what would be the implications of this in judicial terms? Because I'm sure if it doesn't have a consequence, it should have. There must be an effect of this. Do you think, because you analyze now that it looks like no judge wants to accept the case. So is it more like saying that this is the dead end for the trial?
No, it is not. See, the implication is that the man has thrown himself into the court of public opinion, where the world see what is happening with me. And we can very well know that this letter will not just stop in Nigeria. This letter has gone viral. It is almost all over the world. World leaders have seen the letter and they know. And they find out that you are measured as a national leader by your respect for human rights. If Tinubu as a president, if I am to advise him, but at the very first onset of his administration, if I were to be his legal advisor, what I could advise him is to order the release of all those people being tried on self-determination charges. Because ordinarily, under both international law and national laws of the states, it's not a crime. If somebody says, I want to live where I belong, the Nigerian constitution gives freedom of association. So if you say, I don't want to associate with Nigeria again, it's not part of your association. Remember the Supreme Court has interpreted dissemination of information, knowledge and whatever in the constitution to mean that you are free to set up private universities. That's why usually the universities are being set up here and there. Federal government is trying to clamp down some of the private universities. They went to court. And Supreme Court interpreted it to mean that dissemination of information and this for whatever reason also includes setting up university, because this university you are getting knowledge there and their information being displayed there. And that also gives rise to disclosure of some of these private electronic and print media. Like we are here now. Ordinarily before it was the MTA that had the monopoly. So what I'm saying in effect is that if the president has been advised rightly, I think what he could have done in the first thing, that when he was removing Igbo and the other Metiala young man, he could have also said, they cannot go home and see no more. If you want to carry out your demand for self-determination, follow international best practices. There are guidelines. Go to the United Nations, seek to take majority, or find the owner of the Security Council henchmen, the one that once they can veto anything, get just one. Let that one come and speak on your behalf, on the behalf of the country you are asking for, under the United Nations Charter. Then go and organize a referendum in your own area. Let us know how many people want to live and how many people don't want to live. So, but we also find out that people are saying that the rumor mills making the rounds is that the stakeholders in the southeastern part of Nigeria, the eastern region of Nigeria, doesn't also want Nnamdi Kanu released.
Yeah, that's a very disturbing thing to, I mean, it's moving around, but in what way would they be benefiting from his continuous detention?
Yeah, let me tell you how they will be benefiting. You see, there are two groups of people that control the masses: the state actors and non-state actors. The state actors are the ones purportedly, in bracket, voted into power. They are the state actors. Non-state actors are like people like Nnamdi Kanu and the NGOs. They are the non-state actors. Now, you will find out that most of the time, if the non-state actors gives a directive, people obey it to the letter, including this sit at home that I refuse to go in the southeast. Even if the urban areas now don't observe sit at home, we go to the villages, they are all sitting at home on Mondays. No school opens. The teachers will tell you it is better I will be alive and my salary deducted than I'll be a dead person and nobody pays me anything. So you find out that who gave that instruction for sit at home every Monday? Not state actors. Now state actors have said, disobey it, come to work. I will deal with you if you don't come to work. Yet they are still being disobeyed. So there is likelihood that if Nnamdi Kanu is released, he will rupture the political setting for some of these state actors.
So could this be the reason why it is convenient for the federal government to keep him in detention?
Oh, see, the federal government, Tinubu as a president, doesn't drink beer with me in the streets of Zikebene. He doesn't chill with us in ShopRite, but he stays in Asorok. Whatever he needs is in Asorok. So he is fed. The information he is given, where he is sitting, the information he is going to work with. If they tell no, the man comes out, nobody is safe in the southeast. So you believe them because they are the people who get access to him. Me and he doesn't have access to Tinubu. But the state governors of the eastern region, believe from Enugu to Bayelsa, they have access to the government, to the president. The ministers, including the former minister of, including the current minister of what we call it, works, and the including minister of capital, federal capital territory. You know, these are people who doesn't want to hear about Nnamdi Kanu. Even when the minister of works was the governor of Ebonyi State, he was going to tell you about it's not part of Biafra. So if these people are there, surrounding the president, you don't really know that president will always listen to them, thinking that they have the voice of the people, not knowing that they don't.
So one will deduct from the letter Nnamdi Kanu is writing for public opinion to help him, or maybe the whole discussion will now sway the hand of justice. Is that what it is?
No, well, I think, first of all, it is the public opinion to assist. The hand of justice has a procedure. The open letter is not filed in court. So court has no need. Court cannot make use of something that is not before.
Well, obviously, he didn't intend that to be in the court. I think there is an adage around here about that. About an animal crying not to be saved, but for the world to hear him.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, what outcome do you think Nnamdi Kanu is expecting with what he did at the court last week and the letter he also wrote on the 14th of February?
What he is expecting is political solution to his problem.
So having said that, is he plainly asking for that?
No. You see, one thing is that, remember, Nnamdi Kanu most of the time has said, if I have accepted to have an oil well, I could have still been released. If I have accepted to abandon the Biafran struggle, I could still have been released. If I had accepted to be the vice president, to be the presidential candidate, I could still have been released. But these things does not inure to the comfort of my people, and that is why I rejected it. So when you follow most of the things the young man say, you find out that they want that kind of, remember, Wazika was incarcerated. Do you remember? Somewhere along the line, Wazika, curtailed. And that gave rise to the rise of Nnamdi Kanu. Now, Nnamdi Kanu now of rendition, that gave rise to Simon Ekpa. Simon Ekpa was detained in Finland. That gave rise to Mrs. Orabweze. Orabweze now also finding some. If you follow this Biafran trend, you find out how the scenario works. Most of these things are in social media, you read them up. Now, what I'm saying in effect is that keeping them down Kanu ad infinitum in detention, but not to help anybody. But rather, to be painting the federal government as a government that does not respect human rights. Remember they also clamped down on Sowore. Sowore is also not, Sowore is not claiming for, talking about self-determination. He's talking about Indian Nigeria, just like P2B. But he's talking his own in an activist way. So that was why he was arrested and trying to say this is wrong. The IG's continue staying in office is illegal and so on. So they claim for him, charged him for one offense or the other, and the commission is going to not going to fulfill the condition because the commission has been outlawed by the Court of Appeal, telling people to bring civil servants. Now, Sowore, I think he's not in detention for now. Very part of him has also raised his voice, crying for this kind of torture and abuse of human rights. And he was also detained briefly. And in detention, now saw the sale of his books. So, the same way, this is not the kind of detention. The federal government is indirectly making Nnamdi Kanu an eternal hero of the Biafran struggle. That is how I see it. Because if we keep on telling the young man, what we are telling the world is that he is the arrowhead of a group of people who want to leave Nigeria. And the world now know that he exists. But then they have played the kind of Obasanjo was the guest time. People have forgotten about it and the kind of by now. So they are indirectly popularizing the man by keeping him perpetually in detention. So whoever doesn't know about him, I can now know about him. But then they have brought him from Kenya, maybe try him for 2-3 weeks, 1 month, and then give judgment that, like giving the judgment that he has committed no crime and let him go. But whatever he did, where he does it within the ambits of the law. By now, some people could have said who is Nnamdi Kanu by the way. So, but for the fact that they kept keeping the young man in detention, they are soaring his popularity. They don't know indirectly. Because they are talking about the Obasanjo syndrome, there was a great call for that when Obasanjo was in power. And the foreign press called on Obasanjo, asking Obasanjo, you thought this issue of Biafra be arrested? When the man has arisen again and said, let people see that, and everyone was at that tune. Even that day, Tinubu, that day, Tinubu was still the governor of Lagos State. He was forced to appear on national television begging the Igbos to come and open their shops even by 4 p.m. When was he called for sit at home? Now, Obasanjo was called by the foreign press. People don't know about the sit at home. Now, what you know is that the Igbos were celebrating their New Year festival. So, people laughed over it. And the government was called for a second that he was not going to obey him because he was never detained. Obasanjo just ignored him. So we see how Obasanjo now kicked the man. Now Buhari in his usual crude way felt that detention is always the best option for everything. It doesn't. It doesn't work like that.
So a lot of people are alleging that there is a conspiracy of silence in the southeast regarding the detention of Nnamdi Kanu. What we've seen, they are analyzing that a governor will go to the president and come out and say, I asked the president for the release of Nnamdi Kanu. So we haven't seen them as a front asking for the release of Nnamdi Kanu. Do you think that that allegation is founded?
Yes, I think it's founded because if you say something is sweet, you say what it tastes like. There's an adage in Ogro, my village, that says, if you say that the head of Ubochi is light, grand, test carry it. What's the issue of Ubochi? So, the Ubochi of the person has a very big head naturally. So, if you feel that you are working to release Nnamdi Kanu, what stops you when you are talking to the president? Having it on tape.
Well, there's just a problem with that. Normally when you talk with presidents, it's not on TV, except it's something that is meant to be televised. And this is not me speaking for the presidential villa, but the standard practice, you will come out and tell the people what you discussed, or what was agreed that was discussed.
That's all right. if you come out to tell us what was agreed or what was discussed, there is a presidential spokesman, all right? And if you have had a meeting, a robust meeting with the president, to come out, there are some officials of the Rock, that people will come with you to address the press. Not that we don't believe the Southeast leaders, but because over time, they have shown us that they will say one thing and do another, especially where the welfare of our people is concerned. But the catalog of the hanky-panky statements are legion. I don't want to, I start here now, I cannot even leave this program today. But what I am saying is that if you are working for your people, I don't believe any non-state actor can turn the table against you if you are actually working for your people. Why do I say that? If, for instance, Liberate comes out and tells people that Alex Oti is not doing well in Abia State, you are namesake Alex Oti in Abia State, I'm not doing well. You don't want to agree with him. He will already have some enemies. If he comes out tomorrow and says, no, everything, all the physical structures we are seeing in Enugu being erected by people Mba, they are not real. People will evangelize and contradict him and say, no, you are not right. But if he comes to tell us that Hope Uzodimma, for instance, is not taking the security of Imo State very serious, nobody will believe him. This is where I'm going. If the people in the Southeast are nonchalant and that they have not come as a united force, excuse me, to say we want this young man really. See, there are a lot of people who committed some hideous felonious offenses that have been given parole by the president, especially when Buhari was there. Excuse me. You see Boko Haram repentant suspects. They say they will retrain them and then dump them into the army. Boko Haram, people you know were out to destroy and harm and kill people. But what is the offense of Nnamdi Kanu? Let us even say. What is the offense? People will now say, did this man go for kidnapping? The answer is no. Did he murder anybody? The answer is no. Did he rape anybody's wife? The answer is no. Did he go for armed robbery? The answer is no. What then is his offense? He says, we are being marginalized. My people are being marginalized. Since you don't want us in this confederation called Nigeria, we want to have our own nation. And I will go about this thing by referendum. I want people to vote whether they want to stay in Nigeria or not. This thing the man is saying is allowed under international law. Like I said, it is allowed even under our Nigerian constitution. So what is so special about what is clamoring for? From what Igbo was clamoring for in the West Southwest, or what some of the people in the North are clamoring for. Remember, even if we take ourselves down memory lane, during 1960, 1958, 1959, when Nigeria could have gotten independence with Ghana, the Lord said we are not ready. Give the South independence if they want independence. But we are not ready for independence. Let's still be managed by the colonial masters. But Vic said we should wait for them. And we waited for 2 years. We got independence in Ghana in 1958. So we waited for them till 1960. Even at 1960, they were not still ready. The North was not still ready. Until 1960, when we became a republic, when they now reluctantly joined Nigeria, reluctantly. Now, when the issue of the coup of 1960s happened, the same North said, Araba, let's go. We don't want to be here. Now, nobody persecuted anybody in the North for saying Araba. It was still the same West that was telling the one, don't allow this to happen. Because the greater part of the resources you will build this country is down south. Now now go and say it, we are going to be one Nigeria. We fought a bloody 30 months war and still came back with no victor, no vanquish, which is just no good enough vanquish in paper. We know who was vanquished, we know who was the victor. Now, why I took you down memory lane is because this thing did not just start with Nnamdi Kanu. So in 1999, when the new dispensation came on board, was it arose? Just like the Bible said, that a new, in the days of the census, a man called Jonas arose and pretended to show his name as somebody powerful. Israel has killed him, like they killed others, and nobody followed the man. But this man called Jesus Christ, when he arose, he did to him what he did to the other ones. But those people who have been following him refused to go back. That was Gamaliel's judgment. That these people refuse to go back. And so leave these people who are following this man called Jesus. Because if you keep on opposing the followers, you might even end up opposing God. That's why I say this thing. Because there were 3 people who came in Israel before this man. Once you kill the person, nobody follows him again. But if you really kill this man, people keep on following him. So, like that has been said, with his death, it is even better for him. Because whatever he is planning for will come faster. So what's the point of keeping him? I still want the federal government to play the olive branch and use the political solution to solve this problem, because they are going to end up in a quagmire.
That's right, but based on everything you've seen,
yes,
you actually envisage that situation.
I do.
In what way do you think it will unravel? Because sometime last year, I think you were on this program,
yes,
and we were seeing signs that could be suggesting that the federal government was just about to release Nnamdi Kanu. That didn't happen. I'm wondering what went wrong if there were moves before for him to be released.
What went wrong was the same rumor mill we have been hearing, unconfirmed, unauthoritative, that the Southeast leaders are frustrating and truncating the mass release. Nobody has officially told us this is the position. But what I'm saying is that this continued detention is attracting international attention, which ordinarily it could not have attracted if they have not tried a man with them that were brought in from Kenya and they are abided by the judgment of the Court of Appeal that says he should be released at the first time, before they now brought this other charge now, with which they are still arraigning him before Miracle. So, with this international attention, the world is one big global village now. And being a global village, your president will travel. Wherever he goes, the foreign press will follow him. And they'll ask him about Nnamdi Kanu. He must have to say something about it. Wherever he goes now, any foreign press that is allowed to, unless they edit part of Nnamdi Kanu and bring other questions, once you are careful, because the foreign press is not like the Nigerian press, where they will tell you, give us your question before I ask the president. No, this one, they'll ask him direct. And if he has no answer for it, they will be recorded against him on human rights abuses. If you go to another country, the same thing will arise again. And by the time they ask him 1, 2 places in foreign country, they say, my friend, what is by you? What am I doing? Look, remember the resources that are being used in prosecuting this man. These are resources that could have been channeled to something better. Something better. I mean it. The woman who is prosecuted, he is receiving his pay. I don't think it belongs to the Minister of Justice. So you must have been hired on fiat. And when you hire some people on fiat, it's a humongous amount of money. You don't take such senior advocates just on a peanut.
That's right.
At least these are one resources that are being wasted on a prosecution. You know it's going nowhere. Because naturally, everybody knows that prosecution is going nowhere. You're a lawyer, you know it's going nowhere.
So why do you think it is going nowhere?
Why I think it's going nowhere is that under the Actions Law or under the Actions Act, you don't benefit from your own legal act. You created an illegal act by bringing somebody to Nigeria illegally, and you want to try the same person. So that illegal act will have nullified the trial. So you don't believe under the illegal. I will just give you maybe when I come again, I give the special section both under the state law and under the federal act. You find out that under the Actions Act, you don't benefit from your illegal acts. So if you have brought somebody down to Nigeria illegally, you now want to try the person and expect them to go to jail. When say what you did to bring him was illegal. So you want to repeat consecutive legally. So the trial is going nowhere. Unless you close your eyes, like the man is alleging, that they are telling you, they are threatening the woman that you should close your eyes, send me to jail. So that maybe when I go on appeal, before you finish on appeal, I must have stayed 1 or 2 years in detention. And you might also ask yourself, why keeping the man in BSS detention? Take him to prison if you want to keep him on remand. Because if somebody is on a waiting trial, he stays in prison custody.
That's right.
Why in BSS custody? So everything about Nankan is special. His trial is special. His detention is special. The offense of his detention special. He's going back to Nigeria to pay trial is special. So everything about him is special from the normal. That's all we are saying.
So at the end of the day, you are thinking that yes, it's special, but who is supposed to trigger the political solution?
He has triggered it already by his open letter to the world.
You think that is enough?
He has triggered it more than enough. It's not, look, you underestimate the power of social media.
No, I'm not.
Okay, thank God you don't. Because if you don't underestimate the power of the social media, this letter will repercute all the 4 ends of the world. But the very moment it is posted, it landed in Australia, that's the end of the world. They landed in the United States, they landed in the UK, and everybody has a phone. A child of 10 years will be reading it. The president is spare time will be reading it. The minister will be reading it. So that is the way to trigger it. If you expect the same attorney general who doesn't want the man released, or who is being compelled not to allow the man to be released, do you want the man to trigger the possible sanction? No, he can't. Do you want his lawyers who are not being listened to? But the man has said, my lawyers are just telling me, keep quiet, let me now defend myself. Okay, now that you've mentioned his lawyers, some people are already pointing to the fact that the Kanu doesn't seem to be treating his lawyers properly in terms of how he speaks to them and how he talks over them. I remember that before, like Ozekome, legal team, and like I said, many of people in the Kanu's legal team are doing the matters pro bono. Pro bono in the ordinary man's language means free of charge. Now, it's not every lawyer that takes pro bono briefs. And lawyers will take it, some people take it for a lot of reasons. First reason could be sympathetic reason. That this man is so indigent, he couldn't pay for legal services. You take his matter pro bono. Another one is maybe your zeal as an activist. You want to take matters pro bono because you're an activist. You're a lawyer who believes nobody should be hunted down, whether they pay you or not. Even to rich men, you do them on pro bono. The others also do it for publicity. You know, in law, you don't advertise, but there are people who prefer, you know, it is against our ethics even to appear in camera with your wig and your gown. Okay. Once you finish in court, you remove your wig and remove your gown. You can leave your bib because it's still part of your shirt and your dressing. But you can see today, when press is being addressed, a lot of lawyers appear in their wig and guys when they are addressing the judge. It is unprofessional. Now, but those things are advertisement gimmicks. Now, maybe Nnamdi has studied his lawyers. And I've seen that maybe either of these criteria I have stated now, you know, fall into some of them. Yeah. And they now feel that they are not doing the thing prosperously the way he could have done it. Dr. Ibekwe, of blessed memory, was my lecturer in University of Nigeria. He was the principal of Umweze Boys Secondary School in those days, in the early 70s. He's from Umweze. The students had a demonstration. They destroyed a lot of things. Police arrested the principal and then brought the principal to trial, leaving the students who caused the mayhem. The man told us that the law was not impressing him. He now told the magistrate he wanted to defend himself. Okay, you're a lawyer, you are discharged. But you're right, under the condition to defend yourself in person or by legal representation of your choice, the constitutional provision. So he began to defend himself, At the end of the day, he was discharged and acquitted. The man now went, he read classics, I think Latin and classics those days. He now went to the university to read law. He read law first degree, read a second degree, read a PhD. I'm a read man. So he began that. He was lecturing us, and each time he always give us that story. So now they kind of told the same line. Maybe when you see law is one profession. When you practice it, you don't hide. It's not like medicine. If you are a doctor now, I bring me to your clinic, and you want to operate on me, you tell my relations to stay in the reception, you take me to the theater. Me and you only day for theater. So at the end of the day, if I didn't succeed, if somebody come out and say, I wash your hand, well, you are the legend of this, he didn't make it, they'll cry up. He made it, they'll rejoice. But in law, you and your client are the same court, but you will be called first. Unless you go to against him and the husband and the motherfuckers will stand up, then you sit down, parties present. Any representation, lawyer will now stand up.
This is the end of our news update. Please click the icon on the top right corner of your screen to watch my next video. You will enjoy it. I will see you again in my next update. Enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye for now.